Good afternoon. I'm Carl Garth and welcome to the Champion Chat with Councillor Alison Champion. Good afternoon, Alison. How are you today?
Carl, I'm great. As always, happy to be here. Thank you for asking. How about you? Look at you all dressed up.
Well, yes, have a bit of a function afterwards. Hopefully I'll see you there.
You will see me there.
Excellent. Today we are going to be looking at the recent 2025 local council budget, and joining Alison for this week's chat, we have Councillor Rick Garotti. How are you doing today, Rick?
Yeah, very well, Carl. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Well, let's dive right in. We did do one of these last year, but I think obviously with the new council, with the elections being held last October, there's probably been some changes to the budget that I'm sure you would like to let people know about. So let's start off with, we covered last year what was actually included in budgets, and there was always a robust discussion in the communities about rates, roads and rubbish seem to be, the big three. And we discovered last year that a lot more goes into the budget for providing services for Banyule City. So one of the things I would like to ask this year is, how big is the actual Banyule City budget? And I believe it covers 140,000 residents in Banyule.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right, Carl.
Who would like to answer that one?
Alison, did you want to answer it?
No, you're welcome to, because there are lots of different figures that we have, and I haven't added them up. So where you go, Rick?
So look, our budget, it's about 140,000 residents that we service, and our budget now is pushing $200 million a year, Carl. So our operating budget and our capital budget is over 50 million.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's a sizable budget.
Very much so, yes.
Yeah.
And where does the revenue come for the different parts of the budget, the operating 200 million and the capital 50 million?
So about 2/3 of our revenue come from rates collected from residents and ratepayers. And then 1/3 comes from a combination of, retail and commercial income, so car parking fees, as an example, funds that we generate out of our leisure centres like Watermark, state government grants and contributions. Banyule actually has a relatively higher proportion of our revenue coming from non-rate sources. So we're about 66%, whereas a lot of councils are over 70 to 75%. So that's been a real success of what we've done over many years, which is to try to diversify that revenue base and reduce the reliance on rates.
Okay. And so you mentioned a couple of those non-rates revenues, but are there any other additional channels that have actually been added to Banyule services to help with increasing revenue? For example, we hear about a number of councils now with charging for EV points really being a priority.
And I'm actually going to add interest as well, interest on. So we also, our officers, and we look at, which bank accounts are our money in, and the interest from that. So that's another, it's probably a smaller form of revenue, but we focus pretty well on where we get our interest from with the money in the accounts. So that's another form. Coming back to your EV charges, not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
Yeah, so at the moment, we have a number of EV charging points across the city, and they're provided for free. So I think we did that as a council to help encourage the transition to electric vehicles. But I think we are getting to the point now where, that's maturing now and people are taking it up on their own. And we probably do now need to start charging for access to those points and then using those proceeds, which wouldn't be a great deal of revenue, but perhaps putting it back into other initiatives that help encourage the transition on climate change. So reinvesting back into sustainability.
Okay.
So that's something we should definitely be looking at, Carl.
And look, Rick and I have just sort of touched on that really vaguely, it's just an observation. We're not charging at this point. We're not charging. But I have actually had the occasional resident ask me recently. They've asked me, do we charge for essentially use of electricity? And the answer at the moment is no. And so then the argument came back, well, hang on a minute, if I don't have an electric vehicle and I have a petrol vehicle, then I'm at a disadvantage because I have to pay for petrol. Or if I have a hybrid, I have to pay for petrol.
Yeah.
So, there's that argument. So, as Rick's saying, it is a conversation we're going to have and go down a different path.
Alison, there was one thing that you touched on a moment ago when you talked about interest rates that raised a point in my mind that at state and federal levels, governments generally also have a bit of an investment portfolio, for want of a better term. Does local government do that where they may invest in property or some other areas to generate revenue as well?
Yeah, there's a possibility of doing that. And look, we do that as well. And we do have a strategic property portfolio. We do work that as well. And so we do have conversations about property in general. And again, we don't always agree. Sometimes we disagree. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. But we do have that as another option.
Okay.
Yeah, so spot on, Carl. We do. Yeah, so we do have a number of investment properties that return a rental income to council, and some of those are held purely for that purpose. Some are held because in the future they might provide a strategic property development opportunity where we want to look to try and activate a space or encourage an appropriate form of development in an area.
Like the Rosanna Library.
Yeah.
Precisely. Then there's obviously cash that we have. And as Councillor Champion pointed out, we invest in a range of term deposits. But we're also, I believe we were also one of the first councils to invest now with the VFMC. So that's the Victorian Managed Finance Corporation. And they offer, we're in their most conservative investment option there. But they offer a really good rate of return and full liquidity. So we've got, a reasonably good balance of investments there. And as Alison pointed out, we're going to be reviewing that investment strategy in the coming months. Maybe we might look to take on a little bit more risk in local government. But, we have to balance that up as well against, what our residents expect in terms of invest. We're not here to run an investment bank ultimately too. So, we do want to put as much money back into infrastructure and services as we can.
Yeah. Yep. So you made a really good point there, Rick. We're not, as a local government entity, it's kind of not okay. That's not what we do. That's not our core business. It's just another way to ensure that the greater income chunk from rates remains reasonable, and we're not suffering financially. Is probably a really blunt way of saying it.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Now, Rick, earlier you mentioned about the capital part of the budget, and last year we did have an election in October. Has there been any new projects or ideas from the new councils that has been added to this year's budget?
Yeah, there have actually. So, so we've within this year's budget as a new initiative, we've allocated $3 million toward creating a services centre in the Heidelberg West area. So there's a number of charities and not-for-profit organisations like BANSIC, the Neighbourhood House, etc., that are doing very good work. They don't have a home. So we want to create a hub for them and for the community. We've allocated $3 million to do that. We've also allocated just shy of $2 million to create a library in Olympic Village.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a $5 million commitment to that community. And that's all new investment. So that wasn't in the pipeline before the election. And that's because as a council, we looked at our priorities and said, well, look, for that community in particular, we need to be investing in them.
Yep.
And so that's where Alison and we come to things as ward councillors, wanting to deliver for our communities. But we also have to wear the cap as well as saying what's needed for the whole city. Happy to talk further on that, but I hope that gives you a bit of a sense that there has been a little bit of a shift in direction since the election.
And I'm going to add to that. I'd add to that too, Carl. I actually wanted to add. So, Councillor Mary, that is her ward. She was on the last podcast.
Yep.
That is her influence. She's very invested in her ward. She lives there. She's lived there for many, many years, and she's very connected with her community. And so she's come on board as the Olympia ward councillor, and she is very vocal. And it's wonderful because it's actually been refreshing because she speaks for Olympia. She brings Olympia to the table really clearly and passionately. So this particular project has been considered significantly, not only the residents, not only with the residents' feedback, but also where we're at with council and what the community needs and what she's saying as well. And that's been a challenging project to come up with, but that was something that was in the last council meeting that was decided. And look, we are excited. We can see that it will be a fantastic project. It'll be a beautiful space for the community for a variety of uses. So that's something that she has brought to the table that is new.
Well, I think what's good to note there is the flexibility, adaptability when it comes to you able to make decisions and prioritise within your capital and operational budgets. I mean, again, the election was last October. This sounds like a very significant investment, as Rick said, and you've managed to get that up and running and be prioritised in 8 months. That's a great effort.
Yeah. And that's just for Olympia ward. Then there are the other wards as well, the various projects that are already they're in the pipeline that are actually looking to be delivered this financial year.
Yeah. Can you elaborate on some of those, please? I
can do that. This is straight out of the budget. The writing gets smaller every year though, Carl and Rick. I don't know why.
I'll be honest, I did not read it all like I did last year where I went through it page for page.
Let's go through it line by line. So, look, major projects for this financial year that are sitting in there. We've got, another one in Olympia. We've got the James Street Reserve change rooms. So the female-friendly change rooms are being converted there. The McLeod Park Pavilion redevelopment. There's also Seddon Reserve Pavilion, again, female-friendly change rooms. That's actually Chelsworth Ward. There is in Bakewell, there's the Elder Street Baseball Pavilion. Again, the female-friendly change rooms. That's part of our female-friendly design program that's coming close to an end, which is really good. Shelley Park Pavilion redevelopment's going ahead in Olympia. And what else have we got? Olympia Park. Oh, and the pavilion, Ford Park Pavilion, which is underway at the moment. Please feel free to drive past, have a little look. That's underway at the moment. That's a major project going on. Millions of dollars in that.
It's actually interesting. A lot of that is around pavilions, around sporting grounds, etc. So do I take it that over the last couple of years there's been a bit of an audit of facilities at the sporting grounds and it was noted that maybe they needed those upgrades?
Yes, it's part. Yeah, so a lot of our pavilions over the last few years we've gone on this journey of what pavilions desperately need rebuilding, renovating, and one of them certainly. So in my first term, that was actually identified as Banyule Flats. So the Banyule Flats Pavilion was frankly grotesque.
Yep.
It really was. It was just awful. So going into that in my first term, I was horrified. I'm just going, oh my God, people actually change in here. People, no, just no. So that was horrendous. So that's why that was done in first term, on my first term. So that was 2016 to 2020, that was underway. And then there's just been a rollout of pavilions across the council, Banyule Council since then.
Okay.
Getting through them.
Sorry, Rick, was there something you'd like to add to that?
No, spot on. In our neck of the woods, Carl, we're finishing off the Watsonia Town Square.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, just drove past that.
Yeah, we got 2 million to do that. So we're finally getting there now. I think it's looking good.
Yeah, I had a chat with Jonathan a couple of days ago. That's looking to be done by the end of the year. So by Christmas time, that should be completed.
Okay.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah, only 6 months.
Right. No, that's fine. It's fine.
Only 6 months overdue.
That's okay. It's getting done. Oh, yeah.
Well, you could, Rick, compared to many projects that have been running over the last few years, 6 months is actually not so bad.
Yeah.
No, I agree. So I agreed.
Yep. And look, there are some major drainage programs as well. I mean, drainage, let's be honest, drainage isn't sexy, is it?
No.
Or, you don't see it, but let me tell you, when it rains a lot and something floods, then you notice when the drainage doesn't work. Okay, you can just ask residents of Viewbank. They'll tell you all about it. So we've got some significant drainage works now. Where are we? They are happening, so general citywide. So across the city, there are certain spots where drainage needs repairing. But there's certainly some irrigation and drainage project at Partington's Flat Reserve for 1.5 million going ahead. So that's this financial year.
Okay. Let's move on to roads. Obviously, we live in Victoria. We hear a lot about roads and the state roads and the state of the roads in the state. But I want to separate capital versus operational. And how much of the percentage of the budget do we allocate each year towards, maintaining roads and repairing them in a city the size of Banyule?
Look, off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you the exact percentage, but it'd be somewhere in the order of about 10%. I think we'd put toward, when you bring our renewal and replacement of roads and footpaths, would be somewhere in the order of about 10 million. It's our biggest asset base. And then the second biggest, as Alison pointed out, was drainage is another major asset base. And then what we were talking about earlier, so our pavilions and sporting and community recreation facilities. So, I'd have to come back to you, Carl, but I would probably put it, about 10% is probably a reasonable figure of of what our council budget would go toward those core assets, both operating and capital. So the operating side of things is, weeding, maintaining, council-owned median strips, etc. Pothole replacement. So under the road management plan, we've got an obligation to address potholes within 24 hours of being identified. And we're very good at doing that at the council level. So, that's probably where we're at in terms of that asset class.
Which is, putting that into context, you said it's the number one, and we're talking somewhere around about 15 to 20 million a year going into that. It's definitely not an insubstantial amount of money.
No.
I guess a question I've also got there, though, is there are quite a lot of state projects going on at the moment, and the trucks that are going around are having quite an impact on local roads. Do you get any assistance from the state government to fix up some of the local roads that are being damaged during this time?
Officers certainly return to the particular, whichever body is responsible. And so the officers really keep an eye on what's happening. And look, we do ask that question whenever, especially if there are roads that we are regularly, driving on or footpaths we're walking on. We do actually get back into our office and say, look, we've noticed this. This seems to be damaged quicker than it needed to be. Does this look right? This doesn't look right. There's a bit of a hole here, whatever it is. And so, we certainly, let officers know. But my understanding is based on the years of addressing that, they're all over it as well. So they're conscious, what is a state project? Where does the project start and end physically on the ground? What's our responsibility as a council? What's their responsibility during the project? And are we going to be compensated? So they certainly are all over it. And I'll give you a really good example is Para Road. Para Road, Montmorency, Greensborough. So Para Road, from the roundabout, Sherborne Road roundabout, along the railway line through towards the Greensborough train station. There's so the project for the rail duplication covered not just the railway lines, Vic Track land, but it also covered through to the back of the curb on Para Road. So that's actually, even though it's council land, it's under the jurisdiction of state while that project's going ahead. The shared user path along there, while it's a state project, council constructed it and it's under, again, state jurisdiction. So the road, Para Road itself, was overused over those years for the benefit of the project, and it's understood. And then not long ago, it was actually resurfaced, relined. And when I say relined, I mean the lines were painted. New lines were painted. That's what I mean by that. Signage, direction, and other parts. So the project is now completed. And it was about 6 weeks ago, something like that, that the speed limit on the road went from 40k back to 60k per hour. Yeah. So there were conversations that I was having with our transport team, for example, assets team, just saying, look, this is taking a while, or this isn't happening, or this is quite damaged. And I would get the feedback, yep, that'll be done after this. That'll be done after that. And I'd be saying, well, who's paying for that?
Yeah, exactly.
That's my question. Yeah. And some of us are saying, well, hang on, who's paying for that? Because we're not. And
the reason I raise that is in our ward, Rick, you have Sellers Street, and down at the end of Sellers Street, Trish Street, Fry Street, before it goes on to Grimshaw. Now, that was all resurfaced about 3 years ago from memory. And it was actually had been an improved road with all the works going on with the North East Link. It is now, bumpy, deep channels in the road, etc. And that's I asked.
Look, I'm pretty, because I think those roads are within the NALP corridor, and I'd be, we'd need to confirm it, Carl, but I'd be pretty confident that they'll be rectified as part of the project handover.
Yeah.
I think a bigger issue is probably, while this project's being delivered, there's been a lot of through traffic through local roads.
Yep.
And a lot of local roads getting heavier than normal truck usage. And those would be outside of the project corridor. And I think the reality is that we're unlikely to be able to get funding back from the state to repair those roads. But I think anything along the corridor, I think we can be pretty confident that it will be reinstated.
Yeah, I'm going to be very interested, as you just said, Rick, when they close off Grimshaw Street in October and November for certain sections, where, are people going to go through Watsonia, or are they going to go that back way through Sellers and Kempston to get to Greensborough and vice versa?
Where the traders wrote to us formally today and spoke to me,
Yeah.
And I'll be tabling an urgent motion of urgent notice of business on Monday night about that car. As it so happens, Alison, I'll be seeking your support for that urgent business item.
Yeah, you can do that. Do that. The president's written, Carl. The president's written to us, so it's fine.
We don't have any control over it, but we can advocate. But that closure is going to be a nightmare.
Absolutely.
There's no way of sugarcoating it.
Yeah. And it's not. Sorry, go on, Rick.
It's just traffic is. All these local roads, Carl, Salas Street, Kempson Street, the little rat run underneath Greensboro Highway. I think my advice to people would be, look, if you were planning on taking a holiday and you haven't confirmed the time frame.
October, November might be a good time to go.
That window, yeah.
And it's going to be the same. When I was talking with our, transport manager a couple of days ago. This is something else we spoke about. He was saying once that closure goes ahead, there is going to be more traffic. Bolton Street, Para Road, Main Road, Lower Plenty, Montmorency, Sherbourne Road. There's going to be that'll be interesting. That's 50k. Sherbourne Road, Coringal Drive. There's going to be a whole lot more traffic going through there, and we just need to be really patient.
Very much so. Okay. Well, thank you for clarifying that, because it was something that had sort of popped up, and I didn't think it was fair that if it's damaged through project use. So it's good to know that you're on top and always looking for a bit of compensation from those state works.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Probably another thing at the moment is obviously cost of living. I know that Banyule Council has worked really hard to keep rates at a reasonable level and has implemented things like rate assistance, which we talked about last year. Are there any other programs that have been implemented or the council is looking at to help residents in this financial year with cost of living?
Well, we're retaining the rate waiver. Rate waiver. We're retaining that. That's been very successful.
And in fact, we're indexing that weight waiver as well, Carl. So it used to be capped at $500. It's now capped at $566. And it's amazing. I was chatting to a resident last week just about some financial challenges that he was going through. And I just mentioned in passing, I said, look, we're trying to do our best and the hardship policy. And he goes, I tapped into it, Rick. It was amazing. So to hear that, was just really good validation. We're the only council, or we understand that we're the only council in Australia to offer rates waivers for those facing hardship. So it's unique to Banyule, Carl.
That's fantastic. Yeah, a lot of people are obviously struggling. It's great to see the council.
And again, and it's interesting when you look at things then that are coming up on our agenda for council. But on Monday night, we've got our active Banyule plan coming up, and one of the key actions out of that active Banyule plan is to look at the cost barriers that families and young people are experiencing in taking up sport.
Yeah.
So the plan was to come back within 2 to 3 years for that. I'll be putting forward an alternative on Monday night to get that job done within six months, Carl. The other thing was that during the election campaign, I heard from a number of residents around whether there was an opportunity for Banyule residents to be able to receive a discount when using Banyule facilities, i.e. Watermark.
Yep.
So as part of the adoption of that plan tomorrow on Monday night, I'll be looking for a report to come back on those opportunities, Carl, because I think we've got the rating side of things sorted out now with the rates waivers and the hardship plan and the supports that we have in place for that. We clearly offer a really good quality range of services, and we're continuing to build and strengthen those.
Yeah, well, look, that's great to hear. I mean, my family, the four of us all had our memberships to Watermark to use the facilities there, and it just got too much for four people at, $20, $25, $20 a week, I think it was from memory.
Yeah.
We had to let them go. One
that was $20 per person, was it?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
$80 a week.
$4,000. That's $4,000 a year.
Exactly.
I mean, that's a lot of money.
Yeah. And in a time where we want people to be looking after their health, stay healthy, $4,000 is quite an investment in the current environment.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. Yeah.
If they had something like a family pass at, say, half that price that we could share between the four of us, then we'd probably look at something like that.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I want to look at now. Well, that's what we're going to look at now with the report coming back from Active Banyule, because raising families has never been more expensive than what it is now. And the reality is that people aren't having families or reducing the size of the families that they'd like to have.
Yeah.
And that's not sustainable for us long term as a society and as an economy. We see experiences overseas now where population rates are collapsing.
Well,
Japan's going to be half the size of what it is today within 50 years. And China and other countries aren't far behind. So, obviously this is a broader issue than local government, but I think that we've got a responsibility here. And I think we have to be asking ourselves, are we doing everything we can as a council to make it as easy for our residents to live? And I don't think we are when I ask myself that question.
Yeah. It's interesting you bring that up, Rick. There was an article just last week in one of the dailies, and it actually said that the Australian birth rate is down to 1.62.
Yep.
The main reason being is cost of living of raising a family.
Yep.
And you know what? Even today, I was just, no particular reason, but I was actually thinking that. I went to the gym this morning, coming out, there are lots of age groups through Watermark. It's actually, we have a lot of older people in Watermark. So I'm, in my mid-50s and I'm in the middle there. Sometimes I'm one of the youngest in a class. And I look at that and I see our older residents are very active. They really are conscious about community, health and wellbeing, fitness, etc. It's wonderful. But they're also generally in a position where they can financially cope. Okay. Yep. When I look at the other end of the scale where we've got new parents, and I think about what it was like for us as a family when we were, our kids were little or just born. Do you know what? It was hard enough then 20 years ago. And I just think, I'm glad I'm not doing this now. This would be incredibly hard now. I'm sure you're finding it hard, Rick, too, with you. So you've got 5, 6-year-old, 3, 4.
Thanks for reminding me, Alison.
You've just got to keep them alive. And then you get to my level. Then they start doing things like going, oh, Mum, I'll go your halves in your dishwasher. And you go, yes, you will.
I'll tell you what, I'll take a half.
Yeah, Alison. So I took a half.
I'll take a half.
So, and I do say that, with tongue in cheek, because obviously you are going to keep them alive. But I look at it now and I just go, it is really hard and it doesn't need to be this hard. And I think about when I was living in the UK in the mid-90s, the UK was hard. In the 80s in the UK, it was hard. Margaret Thatcher and all of that. We've been so lucky. This whole country really has been so lucky for so long. And now we're here and we're just going, what are we doing? What's happening? And we are making those choices now where we've got families. I was actually just reading the report a couple of nights ago in preparation for Monday night's meeting. Kids will be at sport from up until about 12 years old, so that's your primary school age. And once they get into high school, they're going, might not do sport now. So they're actually reducing their fitness levels. And it might be due to schooling, but ultimately it comes back to cost. school fees plus, cost of, external extracurricular activities, and something's got to give. And unfortunately, our health is the thing that is given.
Yep, that's very true.
One thing that just on this topic of the cost of living that I'll just wanting to be putting on the table is that at the moment, the way our rates are set, you get charged a general rate and then you get charged a rate for your garbage service.
Mm-hmm.
And both those rates are linked to the value of your property. So we have a principle that, in a sense, that the higher the value of your property, the greater capacity you may have to pay. And that's a hallmark of, in fact, that's a hallmark of taxation in Australia. The more you earn, the more you pay. Now, unfortunately, there are a couple of our colleagues on the council who believe that the garbage cost should be levied as a fixed charge rather than as a rate. And to give you an example, Carl, for the average household in Grimshaw, for the average household in Sherborne, that would see their rate going up $150 to $200 a year. So at the last council meeting, I and a few others, we put a line in the sand to say we're going to fight against that. We're not going to allow our rates to be levied on a charge, a user pays charge basis, an American style user pays system. That's not what we want for Banyule. And we don't want that for our lower income and our lower value households having to be slugged another $150 to $200 a year. So these are the reason I say this, Carl, is because these are live debates.
Yep.
And it's a message back to our community to say that, from my perspective, I'm fighting for you. And Alison as well, I know we're fighting for you, and we're fighting to keep the cost of living down for our residents.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's move on a little bit. I want to focus on something that last year I thought was a fantastic achievement, being the Belfield housing community. And just wanted to know, has council identified maybe another project like Belfield that they're starting to put into the works in this budget?
We did identify a site, Carl. It's a great site. Perfect.
Right.
Corner of Para Road and Grimshaw Street. It's opposite Greensborough train station.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Great. We actually identified that a while ago.
Isn't there an apartment block there already?
No, there isn't. Gee, you're getting close, though. There's something else there instead.
So Alison's referring, there's the bus interchange. The council, that was a council-owned site, and the state government acquired it to create the bus interchange. We were really advocating hard for above that interchange for social housing to be built, and that didn't happen. So, and I think Alison and a few of the other council overall was disappointed with that outcome.
Right, okay.
So that whole rail duplication, new Greensborough station, bus interchange, all of that, the vision for, like Box Hill Station. So Box Hill Station has the train station and its facilities, and then above the train station is the bus interchange. It's worked beautifully for so many years, and it's practical. So that, certainly my residents, I did have my residents saying, well, hang on, why aren't we doing that? And we got whatever advice we got. It was going to cost X more. It was going to be well over budget because it involves reinforcing all the buildings and the ground around to put that extra layer on the top or level on the top, and the buses. So there's a lot of weight bearing on that construction. So that didn't happen, and that would have then allowed for that corner of Grimshaw and Para to become a social, social or affordable housing and some retail at the bottom underneath.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
kind of thing. That was the idea. That was the plan. And because that was council land, that was easily a possibility. So it didn't happen that way. And so we as a council group, we were advised, well, the state is actually going to acquire, as Rick said, acquire that land, pay council for it, and we're going to put the bus station, the bus interchange and the car park, so there's car parking levels there as well.
Yep.
We're going to put that there instead. So that's the process. Now, again, as Rick said, we advocated for reinforcement of that structure so that we could actually put a few floors of social and affordable housing. It wasn't done. It wasn't reinforced. So now we have two separate transport hubs, if that's the right expression, and neither of them can be higher than they actually are. And Councillor Tom spoke about this last year. Councillor Tom spoke about this, and his bugbear about this particular project was, we've got car parking, we've got all that space that isn't going to be used overnight, and yet it's costing approximately $50,000 per parking site. So that was his bugbear about that. So that was one site that we certainly went, that'll be great. And now it is what it is. So now we are in the process of just looking around for where else.
It's a good question though, in terms of what the next big thing is. Council. Look, the next biggest investment that we're going to have to make is in Ivanhoe Aquatic.
Yeah.
As part of our aquatic strategy.
Yep.
We put in, and these are roundabout figures, but to get it developed to a point that it needs, it's about $30 million.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we put in for a federal government grant. There was a fund for investing in community infrastructure. Unfortunately, we were unsuccessful with that. That would have covered about half the cost. So now we're really going to have that's probably the next biggest decision for the council, because 30 mil would pretty much deplete all of our available cash reserves. That's in a nutshell, that'll be the next that's the next one. McLeod YMCA is also on the radar at an overall council level, but the next biggest immediate one is how we're going to tackle Ivanhoe Aquatic.
Yeah, look, and Rick, you've just raised a very good point there too. Budgets are a balancing act. And councils, there's really a need now to live within your means. We've seen LGAs go into administration. So, taking that hard, I shouldn't say hard, but pragmatic fiscal view is essential nowadays. And Alison, we were talking in a previous podcast on how successful Banyule's actually been at paying down debt over the last 12 years. Rick, I believe you've been quite heavily involved in that.
Yeah, so look, our debt 12 years ago, our debt was about 40% of our revenue.
Right.
Our debt now, and we're at the point then of having to get right to the state treasurer for permission to continue to operate effectively, because we were breaching 40% is the limit in terms of debt as a proportion of revenue, and we were about to breach that. So it was, in a sense, dire times financially for the council. That figure is now under 10%, Carl, and within the next 5 years, it'll track down to almost zero. And what that has meant for the community is that 12 years ago, we were spending $3.5 million a year on paying interest.
Right.
That is now down to less than 1.4 million So that's $2 million a year now that we're putting back into services and infrastructure. So, look, we've done a good job on that front, and we want to maintain that. But it's a balancing act. It really is a balancing act. We know that resources are constrained at the state government level. And we know, and with the federal government level, the challenge that we have is, one of politics to a degree, with the federal government having such a strong, victory as it did in May, going, from 75 seats, I think, to something like in the mid-90s now in terms of seats. That, the unfortunate outcome for us and many other communities is that dilutes the lobbying power of our local member. Instead of being one of 70 or 75, you're one of 95. So, the horizon is not, I'm not optimistic about us being able to attract major state or federal government grants.
Right.
And it just means then that we have to be, really careful around where we prioritise the dollar. It probably means over the next 5 to 10 years that the level of new investment that we've done, that people have become accustomed to over the last 5 to 10 years, we'll be doing less of.
So would you say, Rick, that under this council, being fiscally responsible, even though we know we need, we would like to do projects like the Ivanhoe Aquatic Centre, like the YMCA, that Banyule's not really in favour of going down the borrowing path again?
Yeah, I mean, look, certainly that's my perspective, because I think that once you once you borrow and borrow significantly, it's very hard to, as a government entity, to get yourself out of that situation. And we just see that played out all around the world. Debt levels of all countries and all jurisdictions continue to increase. So, we don't have the luxury of issuing bonds. We have to go to the bank. And when we borrow, we're borrowing at business level bank interest rates, which is sizable for the community. So the key part of our strategy has been to say, let's eliminate that debt. Let's get on the front foot and let's use our own cash resources to invest in the community. That's where we're at now. My preference would be to continue that and just to be a little bit more prudent over what we do over the next 5 to 10 years in terms of projects. Where, for example, we might have upgraded 2 pavilions a year, we might have to drop that down to 1 pavilion a year for a period of time. Where, for example, we might have taken on 2 major projects in a term, it might be 1 project. So just balancing things out a little bit and working with the community and supporting the community while we do that, because being financially sustainable as we are, it's just so important for our community, Car. It means that, we're self-sufficient. It means that we can run our operations without debt, without having to get grants from other government. It gives so much confidence to our staff, so much confidence to the community groups and associations that rely on council funding. We're here to stay, and we can confidently back in our community and staff because of the situation that we're in financially. So we do want to maintain that.
Yep.
And I just also think, Rick, when you and Councillor Mark were first elected, 12 years ago, and you looked at that budget, I can imagine it would have been, for yourself who has significant financial understanding and knowledge, financial intelligence, that must have been frightening for you to see that and go, oh my God, where am I? What have I got myself into? And what are we going to do?
Yeah, we were, Look, when I first got on and I saw that budget, I was aghast, to be honest. I thought, how's this council going to survive? and but we did, and look, we made some good investments. At that time too, we weren't rate capped. So in fairness, in the first couple of years as a council, we did lift the rates above the cap. Mm-hmm. So that's the other constraint that we have too, Carl, that the cap is always going to be there now. Mm. So, which I think is a good thing overall, but it means that we don't have the luxury of if we make a mistake, let's say, and we spend a little bit more than what we should have, we don't have the luxury of then saying, we've got to sort of recover that now by increasing the rates a little bit more.
Yeah, we can't do that.
We can't do that.
Yeah. Which is actually, look, it is a good thing. It allows for responsibility for the council, whichever council, to really manage their budget and manage what they have. And look, for those 4 years before I was elected, and while Councillor Mark and Councillor Rick were on, they really did well to get the budget in a better place, in a much better place by the time Councillor Mark Peter and I were elected in 2016. So, we're really grateful for that. But then again, by that stage, the rate cap had come in. Okay. And so, we are in a position where we do need to be responsible. We can't keep falling back onto rates. And that is why we have a variety of other avenues that we get our income from.
And the other thing that we have to balance as well, Carl, is that, we employ about 1,000 people, and at least half of those people live in the city of Banyule. And then I'd dare probably say, a fair chunk would then just live outside of Banyule. So our staff, we're conscious of making sure that we remunerate our staff appropriately, that their salaries and wages are keeping up with the cost of living. Yep. Because they're part of our community. So, we need to, that's also an obligation that we have, just to throw into the mix.
Look, I think to finish off, a question I'd like to ask is, because we've talked about sustainability, financial sustainability. What actually happens when an LGA goes into administration? What happens to the city?
Well, you wouldn't be doing this podcast.
Oh, that's true.
So you know what? Councillor Rick and I, we are on the Yarra Plenty Regional Library Board. Mm-hmm. And we've certainly, so the last 4 years, up until October 25th, 2024, those last 4 years were, Whittlesea did not have councillors. Okay, it had a CEO and it had an administrator. And Rick and I actually know the administrator. We've worked with her. So she's very knowledgeable about local government, having been a CEO herself. So she was in that position as the administrator, and she's it. So she is the councillor group.
So my question was more around, if you look at the horror stories of a Detroit, where it went bankrupt, couldn't do waste management, couldn't do policing, etc.
Is that
well? Here,
the other way, Carl.
I don't think so. In America, the state, obviously, the state governments there have allowed their councils to fold. I mean, legally, we could go bankrupt. And services would collapse for the community. I don't think that would happen because the state government would step in and ultimately then run the services. But, we can't be, our obligation, and that's why the government has rules in place, Carl, that cap the borrowings at 40%, because ultimately the state government is responsible here. We're a part of state government. So ultimately they will step in and deliver the services, which is why they've put those constraints in place. But I suppose we feel that obligation and responsibility to our community and to the state to be sustainable. Because if everyone goes out and borrows, and if everyone's unsustainable, Well, what level of burden would that put upon the state then? The state's already in $200 billion of its own debt. The last thing it needs is local councils getting out of control.
Yep.
So I suppose that's the prism that we look at it, to say that we've got a serious responsibility here to the community, but also to our state government to be responsible financially, and then to lessen the burden on the overall state.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's where we stand. That's where Banyule stands.
Yep.
And we know enough about what's happening across the sector. So we just keep in touch with what's going on across the sector. And we can see and we can say that there are probably more councils, whether they're rural or suburban, or metro councils, that are challenged with their leadership. There's a lot of movement at CEO level in local government across Victoria at the moment. Yep. It's actually a little bit disturbing. So there's a lot of movement. A lot of the CEOs are moving around, and with that, we've also got councils, actual councillor groups within various councils that are not there. The council is under administration, and Rick's just explained that, where it doesn't function. It's just a holding pattern. Yep. It's very much a holding pattern for that council, and it's not stable, and it's definitely not sustainable. It's kind of like interim. When we talk about, an interim CEO or an interim director, for example, there's an end after 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, whatever it is. With 4 years, there's not a great deal of function, because there can't be movement out of that holding pattern, because there isn't the traditional council structure to make decisions.
Yep.
And the idea is you need to be, as a council, you need to have a councillor group to be able to function effectively and move ahead. But there's a lot of that holding pattern happening at the moment at local government level.
Okay. Well, I think that's a good place to leave off. Talking about why you do the things that you do, and it's good to know that you're taking, as I said, a very pragmatic view. Look, I'd like to thank you, Alison and Rick, for your time today, providing insights into the budget and, again, the tough decisions you have to make with it.
No, thank you, Carl. And Rick, thanks for joining us. Always a pleasure. Love having you at the budget conversation.
Yeah, you can pencil me in every year for this one, Alison. I
Absolutely.
like it too.
Hopefully, look, we did invite the other councillors, and look, they've all either got other commitments or they're still in a position where they just want to learn a little bit more before they start chatting with us. So hopefully next year we'll have some more councillors on board.
And I'd like to thank everyone out there for listening to the Champion Chat. Hopefully you'll join us for our next monthly podcast. If you do have any questions, please feel free to contact Rick and Alison. You will find their contact details on the Banyule City website. Thank you all, and have a wonderful day.
And in the Banyule banner.
And the Banyule banner.
It's my neighbourhood.
Thank you, Carl.
Thanks, Carl. Bye-bye, everyone.